If you or someone you know has any prominent mutable placements in your chart, if you have Sun, Moon, Rising, Mercury, Venus even in Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, this is a PSA. It's almost over. I say that because we are about midway at the time of me posting this, midway through eclipse season. We just had a full moon in Pisces, mutable, watery, emotional sign. The moon rules over our emotions, and now we're going to be having a new moon in another mutable sign, in the lovely earth sign of Virgo. There are so many overarching themes around distilling the chaos from retrograde season in the summer and even currently eclipse season, distilling the lessons and experiences that we have had and grounding them into potent lessons. And this lending itself to us walking through what is really considered, with solar eclipses and new moons, this karmic new chapter for many of us if we choose to walk through that door. It's really informing these new chapters within us. We have Mercury and Venus all in conjunctions, whether they're looser or tighter, with the sun and moon, all in Virgo. So there's a lot going on in a specific house in your chart at the time of this eclipse, and we're going to dive into that, custom to all the signs. So sit back, relax, and let's talk about it. And before we begin, I have the biggest announcement of the year, and that is that pre-orders are open for the 2026 Aura-line astrology planner line. Now, these are passion projects that I've been working on all year. I personally design all of these planners. Now, of course, we have our OG vegan leather binding of the planners this year with a new limited edition color that is this beautiful teal. But we also have new Wire O binding, and that is also limited edition. This is the first year that we have added this binding since the first 2 years that I started this company. And what I love most about it is that there are tabs now. So as you are looking through all of the transits or you see any symbols, you can easily flip back over to the key tab to see everything that you are looking up. And the last two items are our classic extra big astrology wall calendars, perfect for your room, the office, or anywhere you'd like, and our ritual kits. So I'm so excited for you to dive into all of it. Now, like mentioned before, the limited edition new color, spiral binding, all the items will not be restocked once they sell out. And many of these popular colors and bindings usually tend to sell out pretty quickly. So it's first come, first serve. And as a thank you to all of you, I'm doing a loyalty sale right now on bundles and a few other things on the site. So pre-order now. I'm so proud of all of the work that I've been doing behind the scenes to make this. And I'm so grateful to you for rocking with me. I know many of you have enjoyed your planners for many years now, which is insane to say. Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper into this eclipse. So this is not just any eclipse. It is a solar eclipse, and a partial solar eclipse at that. Now, I'm sure many of you guys have heard of total solar eclipses. The path of totality is going to be in this area of the US at this time, or this area of your country or your state at this time. Go see it, right? And solar eclipses only ever happen during new moons, when the moon and the sun are conjunct in the same sign at the exact degree. And especially in traditional astrology, this signifies this conjunction of the conscious, that being the sun, and the subconscious, that being the moon, coming together in alignment. And it really signifies this time where we can feel a lot more clarity. We can experience a lot more alignment with our conscious intentions and our subconscious intentions. And so this can really signify this time where there is a bit more clarity and understanding around things. And this is why in the intro I mentioned that we can feel like we have a few more downloads right now, where we feel like we understand things a little bit better for what they are, what they were. And with that informed understanding, we can walk into this new chapter in alignment with a new moon. Saying that for many reasons. One of them is because this solar eclipse and new moon, this is happening at 29 degrees in the earth sign of Virgo. Now, what does that mean? 29 degrees signifies the very ending of a planet transiting a certain sign. In fact, this eclipse is happening one day before the autumnal equinox, when the sun leaves the sign of Virgo and enters the sign of Libra. So it's at 29 degrees at the very end of its trip through Virgo. And 29 degrees really signifies the ending of something, wrapping up of things in many ways, where we're ending some type of journey and we're finally able to look back at it in a lot of ways and finally put together what we experienced, what it means to us, and move forward onto a next chapter. On top of that, as many of you already know, new moons signify new beginnings. It is literally marking the beginning of a new lunar cycle, a 28-day cycle. On top of that, it's also marking the beginning of a new 6-month cycle where we will see the culmination around a lot of the actions and intentions that we set right now come to fruition and become a lot more tangible and visible in 6 months when we see a Virgo full moon. Now, in terms of top transits happening around the time of this eclipse, we also want to look to the ruler of Virgo to have a little bit more information around the general tone that we will be experiencing for this eclipse. Because essentially, with the sun and moon being in Virgo, they are essentially in the house of the planet that rules that house. So whatever is going on with that planet can impact what's going on in their house. It's kind of like if you visit a friend and they're really upset, you might feel a little awkward in their house. But if they're really happy and they just struck gold, or I don't know, they're just really joyous and excited, you have a higher likelihood to feel excited. So with that said, with Mercury being the ruler of Virgo, it's actually currently in the sign of Virgo. So it will be in the same sign of this eclipse and very happy and expressing itself in a lot more of a clear sense because it's in its own domicile. It's in its own house. We also see that Venus will also be in the sign of Virgo at the time of this eclipse. Now, Venus is the planet of love, relationships, aesthetics, and it really indicates this a little bit more of this refinement when it comes to expressing and living by our values and really living in a service-first way, like reflecting on how we give and receive energy in this life and how we find a little bit more balance and ritual in our lives. And so it can also indicate around the time of this eclipse, this clarity around what we love, what we value most. But another aspect of Venus is that it is one of the top 2 benefic, most lucky planets in our solar system. So this is also indicating an eclipse that feels a little bit more conducive for a lot of us. There's a little bit more ease and softness that's added to this lunation thanks to Venus's presence. The other most notable transit happening around the time of this eclipse will be that this eclipse, the sun and moon, will be in opposition with Saturn, which is currently retrograde in Pisces. Now, Pisces and Virgo are sister signs in that they are both mutable signs. They are both deeply intuitive. And when we see an eclipse or a new moon in opposition with Saturn, this can really indicate these overarching themes around this time where we find a bit more clarity as it pertains to our responsibilities, or we might even be invited through experiences right now to find a balance between a more grounded sense, like where we feel like, oh, I know what I need to do. I feel very grounded in this understanding or in this new sort of intuitive download that I have. But there is also this balance here where I'm being called to step up in some capacity or mature or evolve a little bit. And maybe it feels outside of our comfort zone, but especially because Saturn is retrograde, it's indicating, again, this very introspective time for us as a collective as it pertains to our intuition. And actually, I'm realizing I feel like there's going to be an overarching theme for many of us. Maybe it'll be some of us, but I feel like a handful of us are going to notice experiences that call us to evolve. Maybe it's emotionally, maybe it's how we conduct ourselves, or even our self-image. We have a mirror held to us that really is highlighting, oh, I've grown out of this. Oh, it's actually time to grow in this way. Or it's time for me to do this thing that I know I need to do, but it's a little outside of my comfort zone potentially, but you know deep down it's necessary. And this is very on theme with a solar eclipse. This is a karmic new chapter for many of us. Now, the last transit that I want to talk about is the day after this partial solar eclipse in Virgo. We will see that the sun will leave the sign of Virgo, entering the sign of Libra, marking the start of the autumn season in the northern hemisphere, the start of the spring season in the southern hemisphere, and the autumnal equinox. Now, this is really notable in a lot of ways, because when we enter autumn, just as we see, especially for us here in the Northern Hemisphere, just as we see that the trees let go of leaves, it can look like the tree is dying if you don't understand that everything in life is cyclical, that it's actually letting go of those leaves to draw its energy back to its roots, to grow and deepen its connection to the earth in order to get deeper nutrients, and drawing its energy back in preparation for winter. And in that same way, it's this seasonal reflection on the power of letting go of things that don't serve us, or things that, they were perfect for a season. But it's time to draw our energy back to ourselves, to protect ourselves, protect our energy. This is a boundary. The tree is setting with the leaves, And so I also want to say a very happy birthday to all of my Libra friends. This is a hot take. I'd love if you commented this below, but me personally, with peace and love, I say this with peace and love, I feel like Geminis get the flack of being two-faced that Libras low-key deserve more. And I say that with peace and love. And I say that because I feel like on one shadow, like on the more evolved side of Libras, they care about balance. They care about equitability. They want everybody to be happy, right? They care about justice. But on the shadow side of that, I feel like Libras have a higher likelihood to lie or give a white lie or keep things basically two-faced. They are also a twin sort of sign. They have the two sides of the scales. They might change the scales a little bit and with this intention, or maybe they're lying to themselves, or maybe they're honest to keep the peace. But I don't know. Anyway, I don't even know. You know what? Shame on me. I apologize for starting out with violence. I apologize for choosing violence at the start of talking about Libras. But getting back to what we love about Libras, I want to thank you for your balance and your equitability and for some of you, emotional maturity. So happy birthday season. I'm sending you my love. And you know what? If you don't identify with that critique, you don't have to catch it. You don't have to take it. But anyway, let's go on to these journal prompts. What was a notable experience from the summer or retrograde season, whether it was a highlight or challenge that stands out to you most? And are there any lessons tied to that experience? Is there any one single or daily ritual, big or small, that you could do that could help ground you or help you feel a little bit more balanced? And finally, do you have any solar eclipse and new moon intentions? Any new goal or intention that you want to set right now? It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to involve a bunch of action plans and things. But is there any new chapter that you're excited to walk into? All right, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and answer one of these questions to spark some conversation and catch you up on my life a little bit. First off, I want to say thank you to y'all for replying back to me opening up and answering one of the journal prompts in my last video. I want to really make a habit out of doing that in each video. But to answer question number 2, which is like, what's one thing that you can do to find a little bit more balance? I just feel, honestly, I'm going to be so honest with y'all. I feel really overwhelmed. And actually, I'm going to tell you guys something that I feel like a lot of content creators don't really say. And I empathize with why they don't do that. But I personally have a lot of mutable signs in my chart, a lot of them. So having this eclipse season with a solar eclipse and lunar eclipse and 2 mutable signs. Yeah. Anyway, that and this launch, for example, this is what I was trying to get to, y'all. You see how I'm all over the place? Gemini stellium over here. Something I feel like a lot of content creators maybe aren't forthcoming with, understandably so. That's up to them, whatever they want to share. But especially when you see like the launch of something or the announcement of something or maybe an event that they're hosting, there's so much work that can go behind the scenes. And that goes without saying, right? But 9 times out of 10, when you see a content creator launch something, you're likely looking directly into the eyes of someone who maybe is a little overly hyper independent, and is doing a lot on their own. And maybe it isn't hyper independence. Maybe it's also affordability and them trying to start something on their own. So anyway, my point is that Something that's helped me a lot has been, not gonna lie, throwing my awareness and attention into the world of a book, leaning into a little bit of therapeutic escapism, going for walks, being in nature, getting fresh air, dare I say, touching grass, has been really helpful for me right now, because at the time of that I'm recording this video, I'm like figuring out, okay, when am I going to take pictures of the products for the site? Okay, I need to update the site and do this. Oh, okay, the design, it wasn't printed correct in the sample, so I need to talk to the manufacturer about that. Tariff! Guess what, Alina? You get to pay 30% more on your products during the state of the economy where people are a lot more intentional, understandably so, with what they're buying. Anyway, that's just how I'm feeling right now. I'm so excited for the launch of this. I'm so excited to finally share what I've been working on. I just want to end this by saying that I am deeply grateful for the privilege, the true privilege it is to be a content creator and be able to say that running a stationary company and working remote and being a content creator and being able to have my own schedule is my reality. All right, y'all, let's dive into these all sign readings for this eclipse. I want to start off by apologizing to my Pisces friends. Your reading got cut off for the last full moon and eclipse video that I made, so I apologize for that. By the time it came out and I saw that that happened, I was so burnt out, y'all. I put out a newsletter and the video and TikToks, and I was working on the launch, and I'm working on it though. I'm going to find more balance. Virgo season. All of that to say, if you are new to these readings, in case you didn't already know, I always suggest watching your rising sign, because based off of your rising sign, I, as a traditional astrologer, can look at a whole sign chart and determine what house this lunation is transiting in your chart and what area of life it will be activating in your overarching life. But if you'd like to look at your moon sign reading, that is a great reading to watch to see how you might emotionally connect with this eclipse and how you might emotionally process it and feel. Now, if you want to look at your sun sign reading, that can be a great reading to see how you maybe interact with or interface with the experiences that will be happening around this time. This is more so an indicator of how things will play out in terms of other people's view of you and how you come off to the world. It has more so to do with the ego and self-image, more so than your overarching life based off of your rising sign. So you can listen to all three. I like to also sometimes listen for me personally, I have a stellium. And so that's when you have multiple, like a cluster of planets all in one house in your chart. And so for me, I like to go to the reading for that house or that sign, because sometimes I identify with that a little bit more because there's just so much going on in that chart. One more thing I want to mention before we go. Please comment down below if you made it to the end of this, 3 mountain emojis to let me know that you made it through a majority of this video. It helps to support my work. You can comment anything at all, but especially because I'm launching the planners this year, you commenting, engaging, liking, subscribing, interacting in any capacity really, really helps support my work, and it's free and it takes a second to do. And just let me know if you made it. But with all of that said, before we get into everything else, I just want to leave you with my favorite quote, and that is, be gentle with yourself, because life is about the journey, not the destination. All right. Oh, and obviously check out the planners, check out the annual planners, pre-order now, take advantage of the availability of the limited edition items and the loyalty discount that I'm offering for everyone right now who orders early. But all that to say, I will see you at your reading. For my Aries friends, this Virgo eclipse will be happening in your 6th house of service, of your bodily health, of your routines, your rituals, and the systems that you have in place, whether they're conscious or unconscious, sort of like, oh, I'm sorry, that's a habit of mine, or the systems that ground you. Think of the rituals that bring you back down to earth. Is it making a nourishing meal for yourself or other people? Is it going for walks? Is it prayer? Is it listening to a podcast? There's this spotlight right now where the sun and moon are conjunct in an eclipse and new moon in your 6th house of those themes. The 6th house is also the house of service, the energy that you give out to others and that you receive back. So I think that there's going to be a lot of themes for you around this time, a lot of experience, or 1 or 2 experiences that spotlight for you where your work-life balance is, where your servicing to others versus servicing to yourself, where that balance is, and any necessary boundaries that you might need to create, or a reworking of systems, stepping into a new chapter that makes you feel a little bit more balanced. These are the themes that are coming up for you right now. Now, for my Taurus friends, this eclipse in Virgo, this karmic new chapter will be happening in your 5th house of creativity, of joy, of romance, of design, of aesthetics, of romanticizing things, but also of the necessary courage that comes with exploring your authentic self, standing in your authenticity, expressing that maybe artistically, and really holding space for your inner child, whether that's, I'm going to do what my inner child loves, or protecting that inner child within you in order to keep it safe. And so all of that to say, this eclipse is really signifying a new chapter for you in many ways, where you might explore, or you might have some experiences around this time that invite you to process a little bit more deeply any lessons that you've had in those realms of your life, and how you maybe want to conduct yourself in a more evolved way that's more conducive to keeping that creative inner child, that joyous aspect of you safe, and holding space for that. Now, for my Gemini friends, hello, my mutable friends going through this mutable eclipse season. Stay strong. This is the last eclipse. But this Virgo eclipse will be happening in your fellow mercurial, Mercury-ruled sign of Virgo, in your 4th house of the home. Think of your roots. Think of your ancestry. Think of the things from your past that have informed who you are today, that have molded you into who you are today. This is why the 4th house is often associated with family and roots and your past. And so this can mark a very notable new chapter when it comes to maybe how you conduct yourself with your family. You might hear some news or something new happening with your family, but also something with your past. You might have some experiences leading up to or following this new moon that invite you or cause you to pause and reflect on those things, and that end up being tied to this evolution within you of how you interface with those things. What comes to mind is changing your story. There's a lot of people who walk through life, and for many reasons, these can be coping mechanisms that have served them in the past, where they have this story of, well, this is who I am because these things happened and that's just how it is. And I can't be that thing that I want to be, or I can't have that peace that I want to have because of X, Y, and Z, these things that have happened in my past. And I think that for many of you, you might have some experiences around this time where it spotlights this portal that's opening for you, where you can actually rewrite your story. You can rewrite your relationship with those experiences and how you view them. What comes to mind are people who, oh my gosh, this is such a great story. What comes to mind are, there are 2 sons that grew up, and they were the children of a messed up father. There's one kid who's like, because I had that experience, I know without a shadow of a doubt, I will never, ever be how my father was. And I am going to push to actually create more peace and love in my children and in the people around me, to protect them from what I had to go through, and be this person and stand in integrity in that way. And then there are some people who have similar experiences, and they're like, I can never be a good person because I was never told I was a good person. You know what I mean? It's so unique. You know, take what I'm saying, if this resonates, and if it doesn't, then don't, because your experiences are unique to you. But that is what this eclipse is really giving, that you might have some experiences where you're finally able to articulate or put together the lessons that were tied to experiences that help to inform your relationship with your past. So I'm rooting for you, my Gemini friends. Now, for my Cancer friends, this lunation is happening in your 3rd house of friendships, siblings, neighbors, short-term travel. Think of things in your immediate vicinity, but also from an intellectual or mental perspective. Think about fun facts, information, sharing, maybe like some information like gossip. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that in like a community-based way of like, hey, did you hear so-and-so is expecting now? Or, think about the information that you hear here and there through chatter and through conversation. And so this can be indicating a balance between big picture sort of belief shifts and sort of more of the fast information that you have. Like what comes to mind is you might have some experiences leading up to and following this eclipse where you get new information that is through conversation with people or through learning something new that really sits with you and that helps you find the words to process something and to step into a new chapter through approaching something differently or having a more evolved perspective of it. I think you might end up opening up to someone or somebody opens up to you in some way. You get some new information that shifts your perspective on something. But ultimately, because this is happening in your third house, a lot of these mercurial, Venusian, Venus themes, Mercury themes, eclipse themes will be manifesting through conversation for you. Now, for my Leo friends, this eclipse will be happening in your second house of money, of income, maybe even your job. This could signify quite literally for some of you a new job. You might be stepping into something new. For some of you, it also might signify an evolved perspective on income and money. And beyond just income and money, the second house truly, in traditional astrology, signifies the means in which you exist, the actual resources you need to exist. So for example, if you have a job and you need to get somewhere, maybe you need a car, that is a physical thing that you need. Second house also signifies values, worth, your self-image, your self-worth as well. And so if you look at like income and self-worth as two sides of a coin, maybe, your income in your second house has to do with the income that you generate. Whereas on the other side of the coin, the values have to do with the values that you deem as valuable versus the eighth house being other people's money or your relationship and values that you have with other people. So this is all about what you are generating, what you personally value, and this new chapter coming up. You might have some experiences leading up to this eclipse or following it where you are invited to reflect on your relationship with money, maybe your relationships on your value systems and your self-image. So I really invite you, with this being a Virgo eclipse, some affirmations. Lean into what leaves you feeling grounded and leaves you feeling like, you know what, maybe so-and-so said this, or maybe I feel like somebody else has this opinion, but I know who I am. And I know what I feel about myself and the power of knowing who you are, knowing what you love so strongly that other people's opinions and ideas don't penetrate. Now, for my Virgo friends, this is all about you. This is happening in your first house of the body, of your physical state, of your identity, your self-image, of new starts, of initiations. This is a really notable time for you of starting something fresh. This can be a really potent opportunity if you want to start something. Maybe not, during eclipse season, it can be relatively chaotic to like maybe start a new business or launch something. Laughs and Pisces rising, tears as I launch my stuff right now. Although I was born under an eclipse. I'm pretty sure our line was started under an eclipse, so I've looked into it. Anyway, enough about me. I'm sorry. But for my Virgo friends, this is really indicating a potent time for starting something, whether it's journaling about an idea that you've had, finally putting pen to paper, or maybe you have been connecting the dots in some way and you're finally ready to approach something differently. Maybe approaching relationship dynamics differently. Maybe approaching how you organize your life a little bit differently. But this is all about you, my Virgo friends. And it's really also signifying, considering that Saturn is in opposition with the sun and moon in Virgo, and it's retrograde in Pisces, especially if you have Saturn in Pisces natally. This can also signify an invitation to balance things like partnerships and asking for compassion with you and looking out for yourself. So there could be experiences where you might be invited to be a little bit more responsible and step into a little bit more maturity as it pertains to your relationships and how you emotionally and intuitively feel about them. And this more first house theme in Virgo about practicality and making sure that you are balancing your needs with other people's needs. So I'm sending you my love, my Virgo friends. Now for my Libra friends, this eclipse will be happening in your 12th house of rest, retreat. Think of sabbaticals. Think about drawing your energy back to yourselves. Think about what it looks like to reflect on something that maybe is closing. Obviously, in order for something new to happen, something old maybe needs to end. In order for a new chapter to begin, we need to close another chapter. And for you, my Libra friends, that might become something that is at the forefront of your mind as you feel a little bit ready or maybe get a little bit more clarity around finding a little bit more equitability and balance as it pertains to your spiritual well-being, your emotional well-being. Now, for many of you, this can also manifest as finding a balance when it comes to the energy that you give and receive. And so there could be these overarching themes around self-erasure as well, finding a balance between the amount that you give and the amount that you receive back. And for some of you, this might not be this situation of like, oh my gosh, yes, bleeding heart, I give so much. It could be that there could be a mirror held to some dynamics where you were not giving or where you're being invited to evolve and grow. And I say this because we have Saturn opposing the eclipse in Virgo in your 12th house. Yeah, and this is notable because in opposition to that, Virgo or Saturn in Pisces is in your 6th house of service, of the energy that you give and receive from others. So there's this overarching theme there of balance, but ultimately, at the end of the day, with it being in your 12th house, one of the most impactful things you can do right now is take time to reflect and not be afraid of reflecting on anything that might make you feel uncomfortable, and looking at the maturity and looking at if you have had any experiences where you have been called to step out of your comfort zone and what it could look like to actually step into that and embrace that. So I'm sending you my love, my Libra friends. Now for my Scorpio friends, this Virgo eclipse will be happening in your 11th house of community, collaboration, and innovation. So this can manifest for many of you as there being this eclipse sort of spotlight on a few days leading up to or following this eclipse on the balance of the energy you give and receive with your community. So this can be your community at work, the people you collaborate with. This can be your immediate community in your neighborhood. This can be your community in terms of your family or your friendship circles, social circles, whether they are super present or maybe not at all. But there can be overarching themes that invite you to reflect on any lessons that might be tied to experiences that you've had around your relationship with community. This could manifest as having experiences that spotlight, oh, you know what, I need to maybe approach this differently. Like I actually recently had a conversation with a friend who asked me to pull some cards for them, giving advice on how to find, more community. And something that came up for them was, you need to drop what you're doing altogether and actually look for approaches that are completely different than what you're doing. And it really indicated, pause to reflect on if the people you are reaching out to or giving to are also giving back. It doesn't always need to be equal, right? Everybody is in a different chapter of their life. Some people might not always have the capacity, like obviously nuance is there, but it wouldn't hurt for you, my Scorpio friends, to reflect on those things. Maybe you're that person that you keep on getting invited to things and you don't reciprocate that. And then you're wondering, oh, why aren't people inviting me to anything anymore? Reciprocity. But it could be the other way around. That's just one way that this can manifest that's coming to mind. You might realize that you're ready to step into a new chapter where you're ready to move to a new community or embrace a new community or express your ideas on ways to evolve within that space. Hello, hello to my Sagittarius friends. This Virgo eclipse, I keep on wanting to say Pisces eclipse. This Virgo new moon and partial solar eclipse will be happening in your 10th house of visibility, reputation, career, and legacy. So think about, whereas the 4th house can indicate your inner circle, your more tight-knit community, the 10th house indicates your outer circle and the people that maybe know of you or see you, maybe online or through word of mouth, or they see the fruits of your labor, whether it's through, through work. That's the most common sort of connection that most people have with 10th house themes. And so this is indicating a handful of experiences or a few experiences leading up to or following this eclipse that could really invite you to reflect on what it looks like for you to strike a balance at your job, to strike a balance in terms of the energy you give and receive within that space. But also, it could also spotlight experiences and finally finding the words to articulate the lessons that you have learned and the ways in which maybe you're ready to evolve how you interface with your work, with your labor, with what you deem as legacy, with your life direction for some of you as well, of like, you know what, I've evolved. I don't think this serves me anymore. Or for some of you, it could be, you know what, I really loved this job and this career and I worked so hard to be here, but now I'm looking around and I realize this doesn't really fit me anymore, or I kind of want to evolve my relationship with it a little bit, and that's okay. These are the sort of things that could be coming up for you right now. And so don't shy away from those things and be open-minded, especially to lessons as they pertain to finding more energetic balance for yourself, and especially for your well-being and your personal health. Now, for my Capricorn friends, this Virgo partial solar eclipse will be happening in your 9th house of studying, higher learning, long distance travel. For some of you, this could be publishing, printing something of some kind, and all things expansion of awareness in a lot of ways. That's what I mean by, higher learning. This could also pertain to your spiritual practices and routines and rituals, your relationship with spirituality. This could pertain to your religion, your philosophical views. But all of that to say, this is indicating around the time of this lunation, you might have some eclipse karmic new chapters happen when it comes to your relationship with your spirituality, your philosophical views, heck, even your political views, because they're so heavily tied to our worldviews, right? And you might also have what could be potential opportunities or a spotlight on travel that maybe you're planning or maybe that you're currently in. But there's a lot of themes around that right now. And if you notice any invitations through experiences to finally acknowledge some maybe lessons or maybe even like hard truths for some of you, don't shy away from that. Consider journaling or expressing in some way, whether it is to yourself or others, any sort of realizations or downloads that come up right now, because for you guys, it's going to be really leading to a lot of expansion of awareness in some way. So follow those little tidbits, those breadcrumbs, those cosmic breadcrumb sprinkles. So for my Aquarius friends, this eclipse will be happening in your 8th house of death, of the ramifications of marriage and relationships. So think about the necessary vulnerabilities that come with intimacy when you deepen a relationship, but also the things that you get after things end, whether it is from death. Think about what is left behind for you from people who pass, or think about the ramifications of a relationship, or let's say a divorce. What do you get from a divorce? It doesn't always have to be necessarily endings or something as negative as that, but the 8th house is also tied to intimacy and codependency and deep relationships and connections and the intimacy of like longer term relationships. But ultimately, another aspect of the 8th house are finances. So the 8th house is directly across from the 2nd house of money. So it's a part of this access of money. Whereas the 2nd house is about your money and your income and how you make money. The 8th house is about other people's money and contracts with other people and agreements and collaborations with other people. And essentially this tying of destiny with other people. So around the time of this eclipse, you might have experiences that involve binding yourself karmically with people, whether that is in a contract, in collaboration, or receiving money from other people. Maybe you work in sales or you sell products, and you're connecting with people The eighth house is also the house of insurance and taxes and subscriptions and sort of like the pipelines to and from your money and other people's money. So there can be potential experiences leading to this lunation or following it that spotlight your money or other people's money, or your deeper rooted intimate connections with other people and how you're tied to those things. You see how like the eighth house is not just this independent thing. It's very much how you are tied to people energetically, emotionally, or financially in different ways, and the pros or the cons of that. And so all of that to say, you might have some experiences that spotlight, for some of you, a spotlight on your relationships where you're stepping into a new approach to your more intimate relationships. This could also spotlight for you a new chapter as it pertains to your business or financial collaborations and what that looks like. But if you notice any of these things coming up, don't shy away from the potential lessons that you might notice are becoming more clear around this time. And with this being a Virgo eclipse, this is really indicating experiences that are tied back to balance in what you give and receive. If that is equitable, if that leaves you feeling grounded and secure, it could. It absolutely could. There are so many collaborations and contracts being made and, marriages and things that happen that leave you afterwards, the ramifications of it leave you feeling way more grounded in who you are and where you are going. And so there could be a new fresh start with that. But ultimately, if you want to figure out what intentions that you could set right now, really good ones could be intention setting as it pertains to choosing new actions that lead you to more balance in your relationships. And finally, last but not least, for my Pisces friends, my fellow mutable sign friends, this lunation is all about your relationships. Your relationships as they pertain really to romantic relationships, but any sort of connections of the heart, whether these are closer relationships with your family members or your friends. And this is happening in your seventh house. And so this is really signifying equitability, balance. Around this time, you might make decisions or have some experiences that really spotlight the balance in your relationships or potentially the imbalances in your relationships. And this could look like a mirror being held to you and the ways that you could improve to actually support healthier relationships, or a mirror held to people around you, or maybe you are that mirror to them, trying to communicate your experiences with them to help these relationships. But with this being a Virgo eclipse and new moon, it's signifying a karmic new chapter as it pertains to your relationships. You might have some experiences for some of you where you look at things a little bit differently and you can't unsee something or you can't unhear something. And that might not necessarily be a negative thing. It could be a positive thing where you're like, oh, they love me, or like, oh, we finally said that, or we entered this new chapter, or I finally realized that I am going to fight so hard for this relationship. There could be so many things, but this could also look like relationship hygiene, agreements, disagreements, scheduling, and balancing self-care with self-care and boundaries with also the needs of others. Saturn will be in your first house in Pisces. And so right now you might be going through some Saturnian retrograde themes in your first house involving experiences that are calling you to step up as an individual, to evolve as an individual, evolve your own self-image and mature in some way. And with Saturn being retrograde opposing this eclipse, this could signify that your relationships are really in this sort of turning point, or a relationship is reflecting this turning point where it's like, yeah, I agree with Saturn. You kind of need to step out of your comfort zone a little bit in order to step into this new chapter. So don't be afraid of that if you notice these themes coming up, and just stay strong, my Pisces friends. I have heard so many stories from Pisces people replying to my Align newsletter, talking about each lunation, and in the comment section talking about how this eclipse season has been especially rough or overwhelming for you. And I just want to give you a piece of encouragement as a fellow Pisces rising I am. Stay strong. Eclipse season is almost over. And I'm sending you my love. Peace.